Now imagine that you have decided to join a club. It might be a Toastmaster club, but it might also be just a local club that plays cards or some kind of organization that you're passionate about or that you're interested in anyway. And you join this group with the intention of participating, getting to know a few people, and enjoy the surroundings of not having to be at work or with your family. This is your getaway time. And you step into it with a little bit of trepidation, but also some excitement that it's new and it's something that you're wanting to participate with on a go-forward basis. Now, as you're embracing this new club and starting to really get a hold of, what it's like, what the people are like, what the atmosphere is like, you get more comfortable. And you think, this is really something that I want to be a part of on a go-forward basis for some time into the future. To the point where they come to you and they look you in the eye and they say, we need you to lead this club. You're taken back. You're thinking, wait a second now, I just came here to enjoy myself, to really take in the atmosphere and try things out. I'm not a leader per se. I don't even think I've ever led anything in my life. But the person who's currently leading the club president, they look at you and they say, I see something in you. I think this is something that will push you a little bit, but will make you step outside of your comfort zone. It will get you to that next level that you're likely not thinking about right now, but I think that you can achieve. And so with a little bit of nervousness, wondering is this the right thing, you decide, all right, I'm going to take on that challenge. And sure enough, it's not the easiest thing. Leading people, if you've never done it before, can be a bit of a challenge. And really bringing people together towards one common goal is not always something that is achievable. And yet, you stick with it. For 12 months, you stick through it. And in the end, the measurement of success, club growth, new adventures, a self of fulfillment surrounds you because what you set out to achieve, you did. Against all odds, against anything of what you ever imagined in your life possible, you actually made it happen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that by no means is a blockbuster story, but it is my story. It was 7 years ago when I entered that room, that Toastmasters Club room, and really knowing a little bit about it, thought, I want to not necessarily go home right away in the evening. I want to do something else. And this was an opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone and try public speaking. And while I was going through the club process and learning about Toastmasters and learning about the education path that they had, the club president saw something in me. So much so that they asked me to be that club president. That's what it was. It was going forward and becoming something more than what I ever thought I could do. And we did. Within the Toastmaster world, if you're not currently a Toastmaster, they measure every single club around the world by goals that need to be achieved with regards to education, the awards that the members achieve, as well as building up your club with new members and doing some training. So all of these elements are tracked and measured at every club around the world. And then they give you an award, if you will, for achieving so many goals. There are 10 major goals, And that year, our club achieved 9 of the 10 goals, which put us in what's called President's Distinguished Status. The club had never achieved that in more than 5 years. And it was the first time that I led something to an accomplishment that was of that caliber, where I could go out and share it with not just Toastmasters, but others as well. And as I said, it's not a blockbuster movie. Nobody's writing books about this particular story, but it's a story that I get to tell pretty much for the rest of my life. One that has an element of growth and development, putting positive energy towards a cause. And so there are these pieces within that one particular story that I can take and use in a setting like this or elsewhere. And that's one of the reasons that I am driven the way I am with helping people tell better stories. Tonight, I'm going to walk through a few pieces of storytelling. And even if you're not a Toastmaster, and hopefully you're considering joining, but if you don't, you'll at least walk away with a piece of information that perhaps if you've never considered yourself to be a storyteller, you can use this on a go-forward basis to tell better stories and maybe step outside of your comfort zone. Now, before I get into all of the details, I want to share what I think are the 3 biggest obstacles for people when they are thinking about storytelling. The first obstacle is, I don't know if I have a lot of good stories or any stories at all. Mark Brown, who is the 1995 world champion of public speaking, says, your life tells a story, and there's someone out there that needs to hear it. And that rings true for me because, as I said, I don't lead the most extravagant life. There's nothing written about me currently that is out there that makes me any unique individual except the stories that I have lived and can share with audiences like you. And maybe there's someone here tonight who has thought, I don't know if I could ever be challenged enough to push myself beyond my boundaries. And maybe hearing that little story in the beginning is enough to get them to consider, maybe that's something I could try. And that's really what we find, is that there are lots of different kinds of stories that are out there that people don't necessarily think that they are relevant, and yet they can absolutely have a profound effect on somebody who is out there waiting to hear it. So people are challenged by this notion that there are not any stories left to be told, or that they don't have any within them. And part of what we do and what I do with my partners is try to pull out the stories that are in you to help tell them. The second biggest obstacle that we hear about is that even if you have a story, I'm not really sure how to put it together. And this comment always makes me think of math when I was going through elementary school. When I finished grade 4, I did not know how to do multiplication. The school that I went to openly spoke to this with my parents, but yet they were passing me into grade 5 and just warned my parents that he will have a tough time if he doesn't learn those. So my parents put me into this school in the summer that ended up being a private school, where they got my math skills, not just through multiplication, but actually a couple of levels quite higher. And so when I did arrive at grade 5, I was way ahead compared to some of the other classmates. And one of the concepts that they taught me that summer was the quadratic equation. It's probably been a while since we've had to use that, But what I remember distinctly about learning that is that it's the same equation all the time. It's used mainly when there are problem descriptions of pieces that you need to figure out which part goes in the different part of the formula. And the reason that I love this is that even when you get the answer wrong, you still got part marks because you knew to use the formula. You may have not put the right digit in the right spot, which is why the answer is wrong, but you knew that there was a formula. You knew that there were certain pieces that needed to be done. And if you showed your work, you may have got the wrong answer, but the teachers could at least go back and say, well, you didn't take this piece correctly and you didn't put this in the right spot, but I'm giving you partial marks because of the fact that you knew to use the equation and you gave it a try. And I love this concept, and it fits so well with storytelling, that once you know the formula on how to tell better stories, it's just grabbing the pieces and putting them in to the right socket. So your story might not have every single piece, but if you follow the guidelines and fill the spots that are needed, you tell a story that your audience is really looking for. They understand story because of this formula. And so when you give them the story and it follows that framework, they sit back and think, I understand. I can feel this person speaking to me because it's familiar. So it's finding the stories and fitting the story into a framework so that your audience will feel comfortable and understand what it is you're trying to communicate to. The third obstacle that we hear about is that even if I know which story I want to tell, and even if I can put it into a formula, I can't get up and speak in front of people. I'm deathly afraid of public speaking. Have you heard this statistic before? Or have you heard this anecdote? The one where people talk about if you were to attend a funeral and had to give the eulogy, you likely would rather be the person in the casket than you would giving the eulogy. And I find that this is completely wrong. It is not that we are deathly afraid to speak in public, because if someone were standing next to you and were about to commit a heinous crime on you and kill you in the spot, unless you were a public speak, unless you were to just deliver a few lines of your life story, I'm almost certain you could at least get out a few sentences without wanting to be let go. So this whole notion is really not correct. What it is that fear of judgment, that fear of rejection from an audience. So here's a little secret. Your audience wants you to be a success. Your audience may not necessarily agree with your points. They may not resonate even with the story you're telling, because it's not always going to be for everyone. But they don't reject you. They don't want to see you fail. They want to see you stand up proud, be confident in your delivery. I didn't come in here tonight going, I really hope somebody is sitting there mocking me and making me feel bad about joining this Zoom call today. I'm wanting to reach out and help you and give you some guidance and maybe help give you a little bit of inspiration to want to be a better public speaker. So with that mindset, with that thought that I'm not here looking for people to reject me, I'm here in a positive, supportive learning environment, all key characteristics that Toastmasters teaches us, and bring all my energy in and flaunt it in front of you. I don't know if you've used this word before, if you've heard it, but flaunting is really just that. It's that showcasing of your talents, being brave enough to put yourself out in the world on the big stage where it can feel very much fearful and alone, like you're the only one. And yet the audience on the other side, whether it's on the other side of this lens that I'm looking into, or the people that are right in front of you in that live environment, they are there to support you, lift you up, and give you the confidence that you have, and that you know that you can make shine in the light in the moment. We get over not knowing what to talk about by finding the stories that are worth sharing. We put that into a formula so that it fits like a glove. And then we flaunt our success. We flaunt our talents. We make sure that we stand brave and tall and deliver with an impact. That is what we call our framework for storytelling. It's our 6 C's framework for storytelling. And this is something that we teach to our clients and people that are interested in storytelling, which is why I'm so glad that you invited me here this evening, because I wanted to share this with you and give you some thoughts around what you could do to try to make your storytelling a little better. Now, each of the sections here of our framework have a lot of details behind them. So for the next 30 minutes, I just want to share the formula. I want to share with you what we're crafting and what we're putting together as the fit, so that you can take the pieces, just like in that quadratic equation, and try to piece them together for your next story. Now, when you look at that screen, it talked about the 6 C's. You've probably seen something like this before, but if you haven't, if there's 6 C's, 5 Y's, 3 keys, you can pretty much bet that it has something to do with that after the number, what it is. 6 C's, we have 6 words that start with the letter C that talk about our formula. And if you stick around to the end, there's a bonus C even, and we threw an extra one in just in case. Let's talk through what this is about. And when I'm talking about our formula, I like to use a story that resonates with me, and I hope resonates with you. It is the story of Star Wars, the original 1977 movie, Star Wars. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it already, well, I'm probably going to give away a lot of the movie, but it's a really great movie. I love telling it because it follows the formula so well. But even if you haven't seen it, I think you'll understand as I flow through the formula itself. And let's get started with our first C. So we need to start our story. And the way it works is that we have to really get our audience to understand what is the current state. What is the current state of the world that we're in? And what does it look like to the outside world? In the movie, in any storybook, it's usually starting with once upon a time. Once we hear those words, we know it's a fairy tale, but there are stories that they don't give a ton of detail, but enough for us to be bought in and have a bit of a perspective. The story I read to my daughter a lot is the story of Cinderella. And that starts out with, once upon a time, there was a young woman named Cinderella who lived with her evil stepmother and 3 wicked stepsisters. Now, the current state here is quite simple. A wicked stepmother can conjure up enough imagery for us to really understand that this person probably doesn't treat this Cinderella very nice. It's not her own mother, so there's probably not quite a motherly bond there that we're getting a sense of. And the three evil stepsisters, well, same thing. Like, if you have a brother or sister, you probably fight with them anyway. But the evil ones, the evil stepsisters, well, that's taking it to a whole nother level. And so with just a short amount of information, we understand the dilemma that this character is in. And Star Wars is really no different. We learn about our hero, Luke Skywalker, who is living with extended family, an aunt and an uncle, and he's looking to get away and do something different with his life, and yet is being held back because he needs to tend to the family farm. And he's met up with a couple of androids that need to go and be delivered to a person named Ben Kenobi, because they're on a mission to help with an issue that's going on out in the galaxy. So we don't have a ton of information here about where Luke is going and what's happening in the world at that time, but we get that sense of, okay, this is off in a far place. There's robots, they have to get somewhere. He's stuck in his life. Okay, so now we understand the surroundings. What has to happen next? So think about your stories and what does that current state look like? How much information do you need to give so that your audience gets a sense of where things are at, and then they can come along the journey with you? People can get lost with this. They can put way too much information in. And so you really do need to consider what needs to happen. What does the audience absolutely need to know so that they will follow the story along without getting into all of the details behind what's happening in the moment. There's so much to this Luke Skywalker character that we learn as the movie progresses, but we don't need to necessarily know it within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie. And it would be the same with your stories and what you share. There may be key details that you would reveal later on, but at the moment of the current state, we just need the bare minimum to bring the audience up to speed and then bring them along the journey with you. Now, once we have the current state, no story is a story unless something happens. We refer to that as the challenge. Something has to happen. It's not like a Seinfeld episode where nothing happens, or supposedly nothing happens. It is an event that triggers off what goes on in our story. And it can be a minor event, or it can be a major event. In the movie of Star Wars, when Luke finds Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi as we're referring to him in the very beginning of the movie, he brings these androids over to him, which have a message, and we find out that there is a princess who's in danger and needs Ben's help to save them. And through the dialogue, we find out that these androids have been tracked down to the home planet from afar, and they've gone looking for the droids, which were back at where Luke's house was. And when he realizes this, he speeds home from where he is to help save his aunt and uncle, only to arrive and find out that they have been killed. So this is an inciting event. This is the challenge now that Luke has. Luke wanted to leave, and he couldn't because of the aunt and uncle he loved with, but now all of a sudden they are dead. And he has nothing left to stay. And he has to make a decision about what to do. He could stay and try and rebuild, but he knows that there really isn't much of a life here to be had. So he might as well go on the journey. He may as well pick up and try to help Ben Kenobi on whatever mission he may have. So this is where it starts. Again, it can be a big challenge. It could be a big problem, but it could also be a minor problem that builds from here. But this is where we understand the conflict, another key C word here, the conflict or the challenge that has arisen that is now challenging our hero of the story to take some kind of action. And one thing that you'll note is that sometimes our heroes, they don't want to necessarily take the action. They may not feel ready. They may not feel they're the right person. They may not even really understand what the challenge is to its full extent. And so they may need some help. So this is where we introduce the third element of our model, which is that we call the counselor, sometimes referred to as the guru or the guide. We like to stay with the C word in this and the sense of our framework, so we call it the counselor. The counselor is important to the story because the counselor possesses a knowledge of the situation at hand. They're familiar with what's going on, and they have experience and an ability to look at the hero and say, you have more in you than you might imagine. They possess empathy and wisdom to the point that they can really encourage that hero to take a step forward and go on a journey with them, or at least put them on a path towards where they can make things better because of the challenge that's being faced. In our Star Wars movie, it's really Ben Kenobi who says, you can learn the ways of the Force. You can become a Jedi Knight. He had a plan. He knew that Luke was meant to be more than what he was in that moment. And where Luke didn't have any confidence or thinking that that was something that he could actually do, he was seeing that the knowledge that Ben Kenobi, that acts as the counselor in the movie, could bring him along and train him and help him out and put him outside of his comfort zone to a point where he could then become something more than what he is today. And not only do they have that wisdom and knowledge and experience and encouragement of the hero, but they also have a plan. They seem to always know where that next step is. You know, there's many lines within the Star Wars movie that talk about really what that next step is. It's Ben Kenobi who says to Luke, he has to run, he has to get away after he's, turned into a ghost later on in the movie. He's the one that encourages him to go get trained by Yoda. He's the one that encourages him. He has to face the evil Darth Vader. He's always giving him that, what's your next step? What's the plan that you need to take? So we look to that counselor character as the person that's guiding us with the plan, because they have that wisdom and knowledge to help us along the path. So now we have this current state changed because of a challenge, and a counselor who sees something in us that we can do more as the hero, and take their plan and go forward. And it's a decision now that you have to make as to what you will do. Will you go forward with the plan, or will you not? And that might be the end of your story. But if you do go forward, if you do decide that the challenge is worth fighting for, then this is where you go on a journey to help right wrong, to fix the challenge that is ahead of you. We call this part of the story the conviction. Because the conviction is just that. It is taking it upon yourself to, and all the knowledge that you have, all the ability that your counselor is guiding you with, and saying, I can do something more. I can follow this plan and I can be something better. And I can be convicted to go forward and make the world right, make it better than what it is today because of the challenge that we're facing. When I've learned storytelling before, this is characterized as a line. And when I was working on the model, I never saw it as a straight line up. I mean, it's an upward battle, yes. But sometimes when we go on these journeys in our life, we go forward, and then we take 2 steps back. And then we go in circles, and then we get drawn off the path, and we have to come back. And so in my drawings, I had all kinds of lines, all crazy cuckoo all over the place. And I said, well, this probably won't work. We probably should just make some steps. And that, at least when you go up a step, you can also come back. Your journey will go up and down, forward, backward, sideways, all over the place. The conviction is where there's lots of meat to the story. Lots of different things happen. We get new characters joining us. We get a sense of everybody wanting to fight for the cause. We might, as the hero, even be recruiting people along the way to help us win the battle for whatever this challenge is that we're fighting for. So the conviction, there's a lot of detail there. This is a little different compared to the current state. We want to share the goings on. We want to get our people involved. We want them to really embrace what we're on the journey for. And so now that we're on this journey and all kinds of things happen, it's like pressure building in a balloon. It's got to pop. It's got to pop. There's only so much air that can go in there. So in this case, we have to get to that scene. We have to get to that point that the bubble's going to burst, but in a good way. And it's that climactic scene that we're building towards for our audience. We call that the celebration. This is where everything that the challenge was identified as is now revealed and has come to full light, and in essence has resolved of whatever the challenge was. So this could be a story about whether or not somebody will find real love and happiness in their life, which leads to the celebration of them finding the love of their life and getting married. In the story of Star Wars, it's that knowledge that Luke had it more in him to be able to fight as a Jedi, even though in the original movie he's not quite a Jedi yet, but he is recruited to go on the mission to help destroy the Death Star. And he goes out and there's a battle, and the battle is intense, and people on both sides are being killed. And then there is that scene where Luke is being chased by Darth Vader and his cronies, and he is at the point where he can shoot into the hole that will blow up the entire Death Star. And we think he might be almost blown up himself because they were locking onto his ship. And then, of course, we had another character, Han Solo, who came in, disrupted, which gave Luke the ability to shoot into the little hole. The little hole made the Death Star explode, and that's the release that we were looking for in that movie. End of that story. We knew that there was good that was going to happen, but we needed to get to that point. We needed it to build up to that point. And can he do it? He has it in him. We all believe in him. He has his counselor guiding him. He has everybody counting on him, the hero, to make this happen. And in that moment, when the Death Star blows up, it's that celebration of yes, yes, good conquers evil. Yes, we achieved our mission. Yes, things are going to be back to normal in the world of chaos. So these 5 pieces of the story really flow in a way that people recognize and can resonate with, because they can see and understand that there is this state of the world that is disrupted by a challenge, and the hero of the story, who is, deep in with all of the details of this challenge, and they may not necessarily be the ones that are being called to do anything, get help from that counselor who comes in with that empathy and knowledge and experience and wisdom and a plan to help put that hero on a path that they can make a difference for what is being challenged. So they decide that the challenge is worth overcoming. They make the conviction to go forward. It's not easy. There are setbacks. and set ups towards success, setbacks when they fail. Sometimes they get off course, but then when they do get back on, it highlights to that key piece of whether or not love wins over evil, good wins over evil. Boy meets girl, boy wins girl, women meets woman, woman meets man, all of it, whatever it is that your story is about. It's that moment that your audience is craving, and we have to give it to them to let out the celebration, because that's the release that they're looking for. Now, before I conclude with the last C and the bonus C, this is what we do. This is my team. I'm part of the group we call ourselves TOM Storytellers Lab. TOM stands for Treasure Our Moments. It's also the initials of our first names, Tim, Oscar, Misako. So we're not really marketing gurus per se, but it's something that we came up with. And this is the model that we're building and sharing out with people. If you are interested, if this is something that you think you would like to learn from, this is not a Toastmaster program per se, although all three of us are Toastmasters or have been in our past, which is how we met and formed this and started putting this together. But this would be supplemental, I would say, to a Toastmaster program, where Toastmasters absolutely can give you the ability to get in front of audiences and share your stories and get the feedback to make them better. This is a wonderful environment, and I would certainly encourage anyone who is not currently a Toastmaster to take the opportunity and join. And if you're a current Toastmaster or you're looking to supplement the learning outside of a club environment, we invite you to join us as we share our knowledge about storytelling. We're about to launch an online course, and in advance of doing that, we're currently putting together some writings. So you can go to our website, subscribe at the blog, and put your name on the list so that you can become one of the first people to know when our course is launched. And this is just one small piece of what we're teaching as part of the course. In addition to that, this is me on my own. So I also run a business where I help sales professionals become better storytellers, because as a procurement professional, I've heard so many stories, and some of them are not so good. And I've had to tell people that we're not buying their products and services, not necessarily because of their story, but just because they didn't do anything but show me PowerPoints. And therefore, there's something more that they can do. And that this was a way for me to give back to the sales community and help them out with their presentation skills. So if you're a social media person, I've got my social links there. Feel free to take a snapshot and follow along or join on any conversation of the many different social media methods I have here. At the bottom, I've also added what I call a little gift. So if you're interested, it works for anybody, but it's really geared towards people who work in a business-to-business format. If you go to timbarnaby.com/story, I have a little document put together that I call the 5 C's to make your sales story a success. These are 5 things that people in business should be doing to add storytelling and what they should include in their stories that will help them resonate better when pitching for new business. So you can go there, put your information in, and we'll get that over to you if that's of interest to you. So now that we have celebrated, we have reached the pinnacle moment, what do we need to do to bring this all together and put a nice bow on it so that everybody walks away with that better feeling? Like, it's great when we hit the celebration, but there's still something in us that maybe we would like to have to just bring it more complete, if you will. And for us, we call this the clarity. The clarity is the why. why is it that we heard this story today? Why is it that you shared this with us? Why is it important to you? See, we really want to be engaged. We really, as audience members, are interested in learning, but there are fascinating stories out there that people tell, and then we don't really understand the why. In the case of Star Wars, I mean, they wanted people to recognize that sometimes you need to believe in yourself a little bit more than you may, because others see good in you. Others see more potential in you. And with a little bit of confidence, you can go on and do bigger things. You just need to take that next step. You need to find the counselor in your life that's going to get you to that next step in the process that you have, in the conviction that you're on, in the pathway that you've chosen to get somewhere. So bringing that story together and making people realize that there's more of a universal piece of information that they need to understand. And it could be, like I said, any kind of theme around good versus evil, love versus hate, acceptance versus rejection. What is that theme that your audience would love to hear and get a sense of what that story you're telling means to you as it relates to that theme, to bring that clarity out a little bit more for them. And in addition to the clarity of the why, there is what we call a character transformation. That's like the underlying theme of this. Again, it could be about overcoming fear, or transformation in the sense of going from normal to above normal, or finding love, or conquering heights. Like there's an underlying transformation that the character goes through the entire story that is present. In Star Wars, it is that sense of overcoming an unknowingness as to whether they can be something more that they know is available or is in their family history. That being Luke, who at the time that we meet him in the beginning of the story, thinks of himself and only knows himself to be, for lack of a better word, a mere mortal. And yet when he takes on the journey and finds his counselor and takes on the plan that is given to him, he finds bravery. He discovers new strength within him, and he transforms into somebody who is unsure of himself and not knowing really what his life is about, to having purpose and meaning and knowing that there's more in his life. Because at the end of that original Star Wars, he's not a Jedi. We know that. But we know that the Force will always be with him, that he needs to go and be trained. There's more that he can seek. He can transform further. And that underlying transformation of knowing that your story, the hero, the protagonist, however you characterize it, the main character of the story, as you think about where they are at the beginning and where they're at the end, what is that transformation look like? What is it that they are looking to become in the future? So that theme continues to come back and continues to be present, which is really highlighted as part of the clarity piece of the story framework. Now you have a choice. See, this whole time, it's not me, the hero of tonight's stories. I'm your counselor. I'm telling you that you're facing a challenge right now. You came into the Zoom call tonight, maybe not knowing you were a good storyteller, maybe thinking, I don't even know if this Toastmaster thing is a great idea or not. And really, I think there may be, from what this person is sharing, maybe there is someone in the world that could benefit from my knowledge and my experience. And as your counselor, I can assure you that there is. There is someone out there that needs to hear your story with your perspectives and your energy. Your willingness to share only happens if you take the next step. And so I've given you some options tonight in terms of next steps of working with me or my partners. But I think ideally, your next step is to consider joining this newly creation of a Toastmaster club that the group here is looking to put together, because you can be part of a new journey, a new story evolving. How will we succeed? Will we get enough members? How are we going to lead this group? How are we going to take it from what it currently is, which is nothing, to being a distinguished status club, brand new, with so much energy and passion from its members? The people, maybe even from Canada, want to join you. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to really think about becoming a part of this Toastmaster community and consider who needs to hear your next story. It's been an honor and a privilege to come here tonight and speak to you about storytelling. Thank you so much for having me. And Madam Toastmaster, back to you.